Good morning, children. Now, coming to the next chapter, how the things are moving, people are moving, and the ideas you are going to learn in this chapter. To move, after completing this chapter, you can able to give the meaning of force. You can understand what are the effects of force, and you can uh, say about the different types of forces. What do you mean by work? What is energy and how many types of energy and forms of energy, and you can able to describe what are simple machines, how many kinds of simple machines are there, what do you mean by a compound machine. Now basically, to move things, how we are able to move, either by pushing the object or by pulling it. So this pushing and pulling we are doing by doing several action words like hitting, kicking, blowing, stretching, pressing, squeezing. These are all. So when you are pushing anything, it moves away from you. When you are pulling anything, it moves towards you. Just the meaning of force is it's a push or pull, which will be applied on object to make it move. This is the meaning of the force. Now, after observing some of the examples, we can define what is force. Now, observe what is force. It's simply the meaning is it's a pull or push. So, when you are pulling, the object is moving away from you. When you are pushing, When you are pushing, the object is moving away from you. When you are pulling, the object is moving towards you. A push moves an object away. A pull brings it closer to you. Let us understand with some of the examples of force. When you throw a ball, it means you are applying force to push it away from you. Or when you are opening the drawer, it means you are applying force to pull it towards you. Suppose you are asked to move a table. In how many ways can you move it? When you push the table, it moves, or when you pull the table, it still moves. It means force can make a static object static, meaning is rest. A rest object to move. Rest object is an object that cannot move. That means it is not moving. Static means rest. So rest objects cannot move. They can be called as static objects. Now, let us try to answer the following questions of pushing and pulling. Open the drawer to get a pencil. What do you do? What are you doing? Pulling or pushing? Yes, you are right. You will pull it. Rolling a ball. You are right. It is push. Pressing on the wall. Yes, again push. Drawing a bucket of water from well. It's pull. Then when you high five, high five with your friend, you will be pushing him. When you are raising the bottom of the book in the air, what are you doing? You are pushing it. If you raise your cute teddy bear by its ear, what are you doing? You are pulling. Yes, you understood how you can apply force either by pulling or by pushing. When you are pushing, the object moves away from you. When you are pulling, the object moves towards you. Now, what a force can do? That is called as It is called as, what are the effects of force? Force can make something move. It speeds up a moving object. It may slow down the moving object. It may stop the moving object. It changes the direction of a moving object, or even it changes its shape. See, when you are applying force, you can move. You are making the things move. You are changing the speed. You are changing the direction. You can slow down the moving objects, and you can even change the shape of the objects. Now, how is force related to mass? Now, once again, we reveal what are the effects of force. Force can affect an object in many ways. That is, force can stop a moving object. When a force is applied on an object in opposite direction, it can slow down or stop a moving object. For example, force is applied by a player on a moving football, may stop it or may speed up it or may slow down. Force can move a stationary object. When you apply force on a stationary, a body is at rest or static object. It moves in the direction of force. So a player moves a football by kicking it. For example, a player of football is moving by kicking it. Next, force can change the direction of a moving object. So a moving car changes its direction when force is applied on its steering wheel. So as it turns it, force can change the shape of an object. Here, the picture is changing the direction of the ball by hitting it. Force can change the shape of the object. That is, for example, when you are pressing a dough ball, it changes its shape from round to flat circle shape. So force can also change the shape of an object. For example, when you are pressing a balloon, press a balloon full of air, it changes its shape. When you make a chapati, the force of our hands change the shape of the dough. These are the effects of force with the examples we have seen. Now, how is force related to mass? Let us understand with an example. So, your friend gave you 3 covered boxes to push. They are A, B, and C. A contain paper, B contain cotton, C contain rocks. Now, you pushed all 3 boxes. Which box did you find hard to push? Yes, your answer is right. Box C. Why did you find it difficult to push box C? Because box C is filled with rocks that are heavier than paper and cotton-filled boxes A and B respectively. Have you ever wondered why rocks are heavier than cotton and paper? That's because rocks have more mass than cotton and paper. Objects that are heavy or have more mass need more force to move it. That is why you found it difficult to push box C. Coming to the types of forces. The different types of forces are the frictional force, the normal force, the magnetic force, air resistance force or drag, applied force, that is muscular force, spring force, this is also applied force only, stretching force, contraction and relaxation force also you can say, by pressing it you can do, then gravitational force, that is due to gravity of the earth, electrical force, either by the charges moving or by the transfer of charges, electrostatic force, tension force, which is created by us in the strings. So these are some of the images of different types of forces. Coming to this is main kinds of forces. What are the two main kinds of force? Basically, there are two kinds of forces. They are contact forces. Here in this picture, you can see the contact force. They are physically in touch with the objects. That is contact force. Non-contact forces are distant forces. See here, the nail is far and the magnet is there. There is a distance between. There is no physical contact with these two. Even then, it is attracting. This is non-contact force and this is the contact force. These are the main two kinds of force. Now, coming to types of contact forces. What are the different types of contact forces? So, basically, contact forces are, that is, interaction in between two objects which are in touch with each other. When they are physically contact with each other, whatever the force is applied, that is called as contact force. These are some of the few examples of contact forces. There are two types of contact forces. One is muscular force, the other one is frictional force. This is the muscular force. Here, this is also in touch. Without touch, you can't move the ball. Without pull, you can't open the door. This is also trolley moving. This is also direct physical contact with the two objects. So these are contact forces, muscular force and frictional force. A force resulting due to an action of muscles is known as muscular force. What is muscular force? Force resulting due to an action of muscles is known as muscular force. For example, eating. What is the muscular force applied over here? Chewing the food. Here, climbing of stairs. Squeezing a lemon. These are all some examples of muscular forces. Next, frictional force. A force generated by two surfaces when they slide against each other. That means one object is moving over the other object. That is known as frictional force. For example, writing on a book, writing your notes, writing on the blackboard by the teachers. Then, lighting a matchstick. So you are rubbing it against each other. So you are pressing and writing. These are some of the examples, rubbing with the eraser. So these are some of the painting, drawing. These are all some examples of frictional forces. Now, what are the advantages of friction? Friction helps us to walk. We cannot walk easily on a very smooth surface or wet floor because there is very less friction and there may be a possibility of skidding and falling on the floor. Friction between the road and the tires of automobiles make their movement possible. You are able to write with your pen because of friction. You often see that you cannot write easily on your oily paper. This is because there is very less friction between your pen and oil paper. Friction also helps to erase pencil marks from the paper by using an eraser. This is one of the example which is one of the advantages of the friction. We can able to walk because of the frictional force is prevailing. That means present. Next, so coming to the disadvantages of the friction. it slows down or stops the motion of a vehicle. It produces heat that damages the machines. That is why we use oil in sewing machines, cycles, etc. Even we may fall, skid and fall. Friction also damages the tires of the vehicles, soles of the shoes, etc. So here, because of the friction, the puppies cannot able to walk properly on this floor. So remove the friction. It was saying like, yes, now what is actually force? Force is the physical quantity. It is a measurable quantity which can be applied either by pull or push basically. So in this only so many action words we are using, that is kicking, hitting, blowing, carrying, squeezing, etc. And what it is doing, that physical quantity is changing the shape or size, changing the moving body's speed, direction, or both at a time, changing the rest body to move, or changing the moving body's state to the rest. These are all called as force. Coming to non-contact forces. Non-contact forces are distant forces. They can also called as field forces or distant forces. In non-contact forces, two objects do not interact with each other. They do not have physical contact with each other. When you jump, you automatically return to the surface. Or when you throw a ball up in the air, it reaches the highest point and it always returns to the ground. Why does it return to the ground? This is all due to non-contact force that is called gravitational force. There are the two types of non-contact forces. One is gravitational force, another one is magnetic force. Other than one more is there, that is electrostatic force. Now here see, they are apart, moving towards each other. This is magnetic force. Example, a non-contact force. Now coming to gravitational force. Everything that you throw up in the air comes down. Right? Fruits always fall onto the ground. Okay, you cannot jump beyond a certain height. Our Earth, because our Earth exerts a force on every object that attracts objects towards the center of its surface. This force is called as gravity or gravitational force. So every object in the universe, whether small or large, exerts a force on every other object, which is known as gravitational force. For example, falling of a fruit from a tree is due to gravitational force. The running of water from the tap when you open due to gravitational force. Waterfalls is another example of gravitational force, a non-contact force. Now coming to magnetic force. An attractive or repulsive force between the two poles of a magnet is known as magnetic force. So, when you bring a magnet near an iron nail, the magnet attracts the iron nails because magnet has a force that attracts the iron nails. The force applied by the magnet on an object is called magnetic force or magnetism. Here, when you observe in this, what is the magnetic property? See, these are called as poles. Ends of the magnet are called as poles. One is north pole, the other end is called as south pole. Like poles are same poles. If same poles come to with each other, they will repel. They will not attract. Whereas one is north, other one is south, they are called as unlike poles. They will attract each other. This is called as principle of magnetism. This is one kind of non-contact force. Coming to what do you mean by point force? When you push down an object, for example, a ball in water, you feel an upward push. This upward push resist the ball from going down. The upward force acting on an object in water is called as buoyant force. So, because of this, things may float or drown. A huge ship does not sink but floats on water due to the presence of buoyant force. So, the buoyant force is the upward force exerted exerted on an object when it is immersed in a fluid, that is in a liquid or water, wholly or partially. This upward force is called as thrust or buoyant force. See now, because of the buoyant force is less here when you compare to the coin round, whereas here upthrust of the buoyant force by the liquid is more, it is floating. These are called as loss of buoyancy. Coming to electrical force. An electrical force is something that exerts a force on another. If the charges are the same, the items will push away from each other. If the charges are different, then the items will be attracted to each other. Here the bulb is going to due to electrical force, electromotive force, where because of the electron is moving in the wire, the bulb can glow. So this is called as electrical force. Coming to another type of electrical force, that is electrostatic force. Previously, we have told that because of electrons are moving, the bulbs are glowing in the wire. Whereas here, because of that electrons are transferred from one object to another object, it can show the property of attraction. So electrostatic force, when you comb your dry hair and bring the comb near tiny bits of paper, the paper will attract towards the comb. So by rubbing the two objects against each other, what will happen? The charges will be transferred because of that force. Transfers will be transferred, charges will be transferred, and a force is produced, which is known as electrostatic force. Here in this picture, when you observe, a blown balloon is rubbed with his sweater, this boy, and is bringing near the stream of the water. The water is attracting towards the balloon. This is a non-contact force, which is known as electrostatic force, since the charges are transferred at rest they are showing the electrical property of attraction. Coming to what do you mean by air resistance? What is air resistance? Air resistance refers to the force that acts against relative motion of an object through a liquid or gas. It's also known as drag. And it acts in opposite direction to the oncoming velocity. That is, when an object is moving, this air resistance tries to pull it or stops it. This is called as drag. And otherwise, you can call it as because of the air present atmosphere on the Earth's surface, object can be facing some opposite force when they are moving. That is nothing but the drag. That is called as air resistance. Coming to normal force. What do you mean by normal force? Any force acting perpendicular to the surface in which it is in contact, it is known as a normal force. It is measure of the force holding two surfaces together. So the larger the normal reaction force, the larger the value of limiting friction. It is the measurement of the force against an object. Otherwise, the friction created, it cannot enter the object or become part of the object or surface. So this book is on the table. So whenever it is on the table, it is acting, its force is acting on the table in downward direction, which is known as perpendicular to the surface area where it is placed. That is called as normal force. Any force acting like this, normal to any other surface, is called as normal force. Here is a perpendicular forces acting normally when the planets moving in the orbits. And those are the perpendicular forces, normal forces. Thank you, children.